Hey guys, today I'll show you a science fiction thriller film named Surface. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins in Spain, where two fishermen are night fishing at sea. A flash of lightning streaks through the water beneath their boat, but it doesn't attract their attention, as the sky is filled with countless meteors. Upon closer inspection, they realize all the meteors are landing on the sea surface right in front of them. At night, a group of rebellious kids are surfing at sea. Miles, on his surfboard, is thrown into the water. He expects his friends to come back for him, but they speed further away. Just then, a distant boat catches Miles's attention. A huge creature with 4 legs and a long tail leaps from it into the water. He quickly grabs his surfboard like a lifeline, trying to swim back to his group's boat. Suddenly, he hears a sound behind him. When Miles turns around, the creature ducks back under the water as if playing hide-and-seek with him. Miles ignores it and swims desperately forward, only for the creature to appear directly in his path. They stare at each other face to face. Miles is so scared he can't breathe, unable to guess what the creature will do. Fortunately, his friend's boat returns to pick him up, and the creature vanishes. The next day, Miles tells his classmates about his strange encounter, but no one believes his smelly bullshit. Instead, they mock him for being dramatic. He tells his sister, who thinks he should focus on his studies instead of indulging in such wild fantasies. Unwilling to let it go, Miles convinces his good friend to go with him that night to the spot where the sea monster appeared, determined to prove he isn't lying. Before long, a piercing sound fills the air. They row their boat closer and shine a flashlight on the water, discovering a layer of pebble-like objects floating on the surface, making the water thick and stringy. After scooping one up with a fishing net, the two head home. Miles places the pebble-like object into his fish tank. One can only imagine that this must be the sea monster's egg, and it might seem to grow into a giant monster and endanger humanity. Meanwhile, during a scientific expedition, the U.S. military finds a missing nuclear-powered submarine. The military cuts open an entrance and soldiers enter the vessel. The temperature inside is comfortable, neither hot nor cold, and even the fruit is still fresh. A game on the table is half finished, and a piece of bread has only one bite taken out of it. There are no signs of a struggle or fight, yet the entire crew has vanished. All electronic equipment appears to have short-circuited and burned out at the same time. The person in charge finds it all deeply unsettling. The nuclear submarine had been missing for 47 hours, only to reappear over 5,000 nautical miles away. People wondered if it could be a surprise attack by an enemy nation using a mysterious new weapon. A biologist professor dismisses this idea, wishing it were that simple. To uncover the truth, the military deploys a small submersible under the professor's guidance. Laura, a marine biologist, joins the team, piloting the submersible herself. In the pitch-black deep sea, all sorts of exotic fish swim past the sub. As they descend deeper, they encounter a warm current of bubbles and rich nutrients from a volcanic vent, which supports a stunningly vibrant ecosystem. While Laura is recording data, she sees a flash of bright light. She peers out intently but sees nothing unusual. She asks the control room what the radar shows, and they report seeing nothing. Laura assumes it's just her nerves, but then she hears a piercing sound. Looking out another window, she glimpses a giant, luminous creature flashing past. It moves so fast that it's gone before she can see its full form. The radar still shows no signal. Laura decides to explore the vicinity to see if she can find any suspicious life forms. A short while later, a massive, bottomless pit appears in front of the submersible. Laura wants to dive in to investigate, but the instrument panel goes haywire. The depth reading skyrockets as something pushes the sub upwards toward the surface. The entire vessel shakes violently, and she can't regain control. The team in the command room is in a panic as well, and then all the instruments go dark. The control room has lost contact with the sub, but the submersible's crisis is far from over. It continues to tumble upwards, and the impacts are so painful that Laura has to clutch her head to minimize the injury. She tries to regain control of the sub, but is powerless, able to do nothing but watch as the giant creature repeatedly rams their small vessel. Fortunately, the sub's structure is stable and isn't breached. Thanks to Laura's efforts, it safely returns to the surface. Aboard the research vessel, Laura excitedly tells everyone that there are many unknown creatures in the ocean. The team is so absorbed in discussing the new discovery that they forget the crisis they just endured. It must have been the giant creature's sonar that interfered with the electronics, a sound signature never before detected. As Laura grows more excited, her superior asks if she has actually encountered a sea monster. Laura confirms that she did and wondered if this could be the reason for all the strange occurrences happening worldwide. Laura feels she has discovered a new continent and can finally make her mark. But as soon as she returns to her company, she is informed that the military has taken over the facility. The professor meets with Laura, and they discuss the sea monster. The professor seems to have known about the creature's existence all along. His description perfectly matches Laura's initial findings. Just as Laura thinks she has found a kindred spirit, she is told she's fired and is handed her termination papers. Laura laments that it was she who discovered the new species and that their actions are unfair, but her protests fall on deaf ears as she is escorted out. Just like that, Laura, who can pilot a submarine, is unemployed. Strange events continue to happen around the globe. At night, a lighthouse keeper is watching TV when he hears a piercing sound from the sea. The TV screen flickers. He goes to the window and looks out at the sea, the sound becoming unbearably loud. A moment later, all the glass shatters and the lighthouse lamp goes out. On the surface of the sea, a giant monster gradually reveals itself. Elsewhere, two brothers are scuba diving, hunting with spear guns. They hope to catch something big, but instead, they encounter the sea monster. In the chaos, the younger brother is dragged away by the creature. The older brother, Richard, his oxygen depleted, surfaces and is rescued by his companions and rushed to the hospital. When he wakes up, he learns that his brother's body has not been found. After one dive, the brothers are separated forever. Richard is devastated and blames himself for his brother's death. A few days later, the story returns to the young boy, Miles. His mother notices that all the fish in the tank are gone. Miles goes to check if the pebble-like object he brought back is still there, but finds nothing in the water. He's about to make up an excuse when the fish tank suddenly shatters. The electronics in the house flicker strangely, and a trail of slime appears on the floor. Miles follows the slime trail to the bathroom and sees the little monster's true form. That's right, the pebble-like egg has hatched, and in just a few days has grown to the size of a small dog. Miles is ecstatic. He finally has a one-of-a-kind pet, but he must keep it hidden from his family, secretly feeding it in the shed, away from prying eyes. Only his good friend is in on the secret, since they found the egg together, making the pet their shared secret. Meanwhile, the unjustly unemployed marine biologist Laura cannot accept her fate. She calls her father to vent her frustrations, but then sees a news report on TV about a giant unidentified creature. A creature several times larger than a whale has beached on an island. It's ironic how officials try so hard to cover things up, only for it to appear on the news. Laura sees the report and knows it's the same sea monster she encountered. Richard, now recovered and out of the hospital, also sees the report and believes it's the monster that took his brother. He drives overnight to the location mentioned in the news, only to find the area has been cordoned off, with no entry allowed and surrounding residents ordered to evacuate. Richard's attempt to force his way in fails. On a whim, he decides to rent a boat from a local fisherman to sneak onto the island. Laura has the same idea. Along with her child, the three of them decide to rent a boat and go together. As night falls, the perfect time to set out, the trio arrives at the island where the monster appeared. The place has been completely cleared out. Everything has been packed up and shipped away, leaving no trace. The two lament that their trip was in vain. Suddenly, Laura's son screams in a chickened voice, frightened by a worm on the water's surface. Laura covers his smelly mouth to quiet him and then observes the worm. It's a type of marine organism called a blind leech, which typically lives as a parasite on whales. Its presence here might be related to the sea monster, so she decides to take one back for research. On the other side, officials in a lab are studying the sea monster they brought back. Its teeth alone are larger than those of any known creature. Top scientists from all over have gathered in the lab to study and dissect the behemoth. Prying open the monster's mouth is impossible by human strength alone. They have to use a jack. After measurements are taken, the data is reported. This is the largest creature known to modern science. Its skin is so tough it requires a laser cutter. After half an hour, the laser has done no damage to its skin, so they have to increase the power and focus the beam. This time, a crack finally appears on the monster's skin, but the instruments begin to flicker and are disrupted. The professor signals to stop the experiment. The next second, the monster's skin bursts open, spraying yellow slime with such force that it knocks a lab technician to the ground. The team quickly rushes the injured man to the hospital for emergency treatment. When the professor visits the injured technician in the hospital, the man's heart rate suddenly spikes. A doctor rushes over. His heart rate has reached 242, far beyond the human limit. Yellow slime seeps from the man's face as he writhes in agony. At this rate, he will die from his heart bursting. But the doctors can only provide standard emergency care. Fortunately, he survives this time. Once the patient has stabilized, the doctor tells the professor that his life is saved, but he may never wake up. The professor nods in understanding, his heart heavy with regret. This man was his most capable assistant. He wonders what is in this monster's slime that gives it such strange power. The answer is about to be revealed. That night, the assistant suddenly awakens. His gaze is firm as he rips off the medical equipment and quickly unwraps his bandages. Just as you think he's about to mutate, he turns with a smile, revealing a handsome face. The nurses are stunned. What just happened? Not only are there no scars, but it seems he's had a complimentary skin rejuvenation treatment. The assistant looks 10 years younger and is completely unharmed. It appears the monster's slime is nothing more than collagen, albeit a rather disgusting color. The professor in the lab realizes this. He receives photos from a robot in the Earth's magma layer showing an unknown creature swimming inside. To test his hypothesis, the professor spreads the yellow slime on his palm and then uses a blowtorch on it. The result is not a roasted pig's trotter. The professor's hand is completely unharmed. Not even a single hair is singed. The yellow slime is unaffected. If he's not mistaken, this creature uses its slime to withstand high temperatures and has self-healing abilities. If this discovery were applied to the cosmetic surgery industry, it would make a fortune. Of course, the professor is not so shallow. They intend to use the research for military applications. Strange events continue to occur. A lake in Texas instantly evaporates, leaving only a steaming pit in the center. If one were to guess, it's the sea monster beginning its assault on freshwater sources. Meanwhile, the two young friends are living a peaceful life, feeding their little sea monster whom they've named Nim. They buy goldfish to feed him. Nim first stuns the fish with an electric shock before swallowing it whole, happily playing in the bathtub. The next day, Miles and his friend are playing with Nim in the shed. While teasing him, the TV flickers on, even though its plug is not connected to a power source. It seems Nim can generate his own electricity. Just then, Miles's father enters the shed. He glances at the two boys playing, says nothing, and leaves with his toolbox. The boys are wondering if he didn't see the little monster, only to see Nim clinging to the doorframe, waving goodbye to the departing father. While things are peaceful here, disaster strikes elsewhere. A few girls are parasailing. The girl in the air is recording the view with a DV camera. Suddenly, a whirlpool appears in front of their yacht and grows rapidly larger. In a panic, the girl yells at her friends to turn around. Her friends, thinking she's just excited and waving her arms, don't hear her. Before anyone realizes it, the entire yacht is sucked into the whirlpool and disappears completely. It's undoubtedly the work of the sea monster. The stubborn Laura refuses to give up her research, still looking for a chance to turn the tables. She asks a researcher friend to help analyze the monster's DNA. The results show that the sea monster shares 10% of its genes with Leopleurodon, a creature that went extinct during the age of the dinosaurs. With this conclusion, Laura calls the professor. He arranges a time and place to meet, then takes her up in a helicopter. Pointing to the steam rising from an undersea volcano below, the professor says this is where Laura discovered the monster. He tells her there are many things in this world that are beyond their understanding, and not everything needs to be figured out. Too much curiosity can be dangerous. Laura is confused, asking if he's telling her what to do. The professor replies that she can interpret it that way. The two part on bad terms, but there's no way Laura would give up. If they won't include her, she'll do her own research. She first asks a colleague at the research institute for help, but he ignores her, warning that if she continues, her academic degree could be reevaluated, meaning she'd lose not only her job, but also her professional license. Laura feels an invisible hand controlling events, that there must be a big secret unknown to the public. It's the typical trait of a TV drama protagonist. Once she sets her mind on something, she sees it through to the end, no matter the obstacles. Laura takes out the recording from her night of exploration, hoping to find a clue, but discovers the disc has been tampered with. She can't hear anything. All her leads have gone cold. She has no choice but to wait for events to unfold and look for a new opportunity, as there's nothing she can do for now. On another beach, people are sunbathing. A little girl yells to her mother that there's a monster. Her mother dismisses her and tells her to go play. A moment later, the little girl returns holding a large squid. Her mother, shocked, asks where she found it. The girl points, and her mother sees that the entire coastline is covered with squid, as far as the eye can see. A restaurant owner spots a business opportunity, collecting the squid to package and sell as food. As fate would have it, Laura, who is working at the restaurant, senses something is wrong. The mass death of squid must be related to whales. She finds her friend Lady Bro and borrows his boat to go out to a specific area where she knows sperm whales frequent. But after waiting a long time, no whales appear. Laura feels something terrible must have happened. Sure enough, Lady Bro spots the floating carcass of a whale covered in claw marks. Still in shock, Laura turns and decides to go into the water to investigate. Lady Bro strongly advises against it, but his words are like wind past her ears, completely ignored. Suddenly, a wave breaks on the surface, surface, and a shadow can be seen moving beneath the water. Bold and skilled, Laura tells Lady Bro to chase it while she gets her camera ready. The boat's sonar system detects a target right behind them. Laura tells Lady Bro to stop the boat, wanting to wait for the unknown creature to leap out of the water so she can capture the historic moment. Instead, the sonar shows the creature has turned around and is rapidly swimming toward their boat. The shadow on the surface gets closer, followed by a series of lightning-like flashes. All the electronic equipment explodes, and in a flash, the boat loses power. Now, not only have they not seen the monster, but they can't get home. They drift at sea all night. Fortunately, the monster doesn't attack again. Otherwise, based on incidents at other beaches, they would have been in its stomach long ago. The next day, Laura jumps into the water to fix the propeller. As she works anxiously, the monster swims around beneath her. Laura quickly returns to the surface and asks Lady Bro to hand her the spear gun with a tracking device. She goes back into the water, completely unafraid of being eaten, focused only on tagging the creature. It's likely the monster, seeing the whale carcass nearby, wasn't interested in eating a 100-something-pound human. Thanks to that, Laura has successfully fired the tracker into the monster and returned to the boat safely. Anyway, using the tracker, the two begin to observe the monster's movements. It moves with the speed of wind and lightning, probably because it's electrically powered. Elsewhere, Miles and his family are having dinner when the shed suddenly explodes and catches fire. Nim is inside. Miles rushes over to check and finds Nim is gone. Meanwhile, Richard, traumatized by his brother's death, often feels something in the water is talking to him and frantically thrashes at the surface. He is fired from his job, and his wife, unable to bear it, leaves with their daughter, leaving him all alone. This strengthens his resolve to seek revenge on the monster, a true testament to his obsessive nature. One day, at a shallow beach, a giant monster is swimming around. All the tourists are watching its movements, curious about what it is, where it came from, and where it's going. The Coast Guard follows behind, not daring to advance rashly, and calls out to the crowd on the shore that they will only guide it into deep water and will not harm it. 3 small boats sound their horns at the monster, trying to establish communication. The monster dives into the water and disappears. The crowd, thinking it understood the signal and left, breaks into applause. Laura and Richard in the crowd don't believe it. They know the monster has only submerged, not left, and continue to film with their DV camera. A piercing sound fills the air and everyone covers their ears in pain. As a green light flashes across the sea, electronic devices and circuits spark and fail, and boats lose power. Unlike everyone else, Laura and Richard are thrilled. They finally have video of the monster. Just then, government agents arrive. Richard tries to negotiate peacefully but is promptly arrested. Laura is taken away shortly after. She is then reunited with the same biologist professor. The professor pulls her aside and explains he kept her out of it to protect her from getting involved. It sounds like a classic breakup line from a scoundrel because the government and military are paying extremely close attention and want to keep it a secret. Laura argues that an entire beach of people saw it, so how can they keep it secret? Many people even recorded it. The professor confidently tells Laura to check her DV camera. All that's left is static. The monster destroyed all nearby electronics, leaving no one with any recorded evidence. So why are they holding Laura now? The professor says the military has authorized her to rejoin the research project, all because she managed to plant a tracker on the monster. So that was the catch. You can't trust a word from officials. But once she's back in the lab and told she'll be paid, Laura, a single mother, doesn't resist any further. Meanwhile, Miles and his friend are still searching for Nim. One day, they end up at a supermarket and notice the spotlights flickering. They sense Nim is nearby. Turning around, they see Nim run into the warehouse. They follow him in and find him lying there, barely breathing, looking as though he's been through a lot. Just then, a supermarket employee walks in. Seeing a stranger, Nim immediately bolts out the door and disappears. Miles and his friend don't give up hope and continue their search. The professor has obtained a sea anemone. It has a strange shape and is extremely sensitive to light. When a light shines on it, it changes form, unfurling itself toward the light source. Once the light is gone, it immediately returns to its original state, a behavior confirmed through repeated tests. An idea strikes the professor. He quickly finds his assistant and explains his deduction. Tests reveal the anemone's genetic sequence is unlike any other organism's. It's composed of 3 molecular structures in a repeating pattern. In nature, all genetic sequences are unique, even chaotic. Such a regular genetic sequence must have been artificially engineered. He wondered if someone could have mastered the art of genetic programming. Realizing the gravity of his discovery, the professor wastes no time. He finds a military representative, hands him the research report and explains its implications. The military representative takes it very seriously, understanding the severity of the situation. He immediately says the professor will be moved to a secure location for protection. Although the reaction seems a bit extreme, the professor doesn't question it. But then, a car accelerates wildly and rams into the professor, running him over without braking. It seems his discovery has brought a death sentence upon him. Laura and Richard are notified and go to the hospital to check on the professor's condition, but he is on the verge of death, heavily bandaged and unable to speak. The police question them, but Laura can only say she knows nothing. She then notices strangers in the hospital monitoring them and instantly realizes the professor's injury was no ordinary car accident. After she and Richard leave the hospital, Laura shares her suspicions with the professor's assistant, who is also shaken and feels that things are not as simple as they seem. He begins to execute a contingency plan, gathering all of the professor's research reports and data. Before he can finish, armed personnel storm the lab, searching everywhere. The assistant grabs the most important item, the sea anemone, and tries to escape while the armed men are distracted. A chase ensues through the lab, with both sides hiding from each other. An alarm suddenly blares in the hallway, and the armed men pursue the assistant. During his escape, the assistant has an accident, crashing into lab equipment and getting impaled in the waist. Enduring the intense pain, he manages to hide in an elevator and escape his pursuers. Laura and Richard are at home watching TV when a deafening crash shakes the house. They run outside to see what happened and find the assistant has crashed his car. Laura rushes to check on his injuries. The assistant, his face covered in blood, is on the brink of death. He presses a key into Laura's hand, telling her she must take it, then closes his eyes for the last time. It seems his body was not protected by the yellow slime. His self-healing ability was used up. Holding the blood-stained key, Richard and Laura's hearts are heavy. All the events happening point to a mysterious, powerful hand and military forces manipulating everything. Who is behind it and what truths they are trying to conceal remains unknown, but it is certainly related to the professor's research. Now that the professor and his assistant are dead because of it, should the two of them continue to investigate? What if they encounter obstacles or danger? After some discussion, they decide to continue searching for the truth, regardless of their personal safety. Over in Miles's story, he finds Nim and keeps him in an abandoned car. One day, a police officer discovers them. Mistaking Nim for an alligator, he tries to capture it to release it back into the sea. Miles and his friends stand by, unable to explain, and can only watch as Nim electrocutes the officer, leaving his face scorched black. After this incident, Miles and his friend know they can no longer keep Nim. He now has the power to kill. Although he still listens to his master, keeping him will inevitably lead to disaster. With heavy hearts, they decide to release him into the sea. After a simple farewell ceremony, little Nim seems to understand Miles's words and disappears into the ocean. The control tower at a Polish airport receives a distress call from a civilian airliner. They report encountering a rain cloud accompanied by lightning. The radar, however, shows clear skies with no cloud data, and no clouds are drifting in from nearby airspace. As they communicate, the plane is struck by a bolt of green lightning and goes into an uncontrolled freefall, plunging into the sea. On the ocean surface, a dark mass of monsters appears in a swarm, with green lightning flashing frequently between them. It seems they are responsible for this air crash. Back with Richard and Laura, they are stumped by the sea anemone until Richard puts it in the refrigerator. This leads to a breakthrough. When they open the fridge again, it's filled with green, unknown vines, and the anemone is pulsating like a heart. It's unclear if the vines are supplying it with energy or vice versa. Laura follows the vines and finds the answer. The vines have spread along the power cord and into the electrical outlet. The anemone is powering itself with electricity. Laura's mind flashes back to the underwater volcano she saw, and connecting the two events, she theorizes that the anemone, like the sea monsters, is a creature drawn to light and heat. To verify this, Laura says they need to go back to the seabed to investigate. The creatures come from the Earth's magma layer. This is a bold discovery, but without venturing to the seafloor, there's no way to prove it. The problem is, they are still wanted by the military and have no way to dive into the sea without a professional submersible. The solution to their problem then presents itself. Laura's friend Lady Bro finds an abandoned boiler and wants to convert it into a submarine. A boiler and a submarine do share some properties. They are thick enough to withstand pressure and have an exit and a viewing window. The basic requirements are met. The three of them get to work, modifying the boiler to create a submersible. After 4 days of hard work, work, they actually build a simple submersible. More accurately, it's a sealed tank, not suitable for those with claustrophobia or thalassophobia. They carefully conduct their first dive to test its watertightness. Success or failure hangs in the balance. Richard mutters to himself as he opens the sealed window, only to be knocked down by a gush of seawater. It seems further modifications are needed. This time, the seal holds. For their safety, Ladybro even installs an escape system. If the motor stops, a life valve will automatically inflate, instantly bringing them back to the surface. Although they've done everything they can, everyone knows this dive is still fraught with danger and unpredictability. With nervous hearts, Richard and Laura enter the sealed tank. Ladybro, piloting the boat, uses a crane to lower them into the water. As the cable is slowly released, the sealed tank descends, sinking deeper into the sea. The two keep a close watch on the temperature and pressure gauges. Everything is normal. When the depth indicator exceeds 600 meters, the viewing window begins to leak. The three must decide whether to return immediately or continue a little further. The scene shifts. A fisherman is repairing a floating dock when his hammer falls into the water. As the fisherman fumbles in the water, he hears a strange sound. Before he can wonder where it's coming from, he feels something bite his hand. He pulls his hand out with all his might and finds his little finger is gone, bitten off by an unknown creature. His companion hears the chicken noise and comes to check, but the fisherman is nowhere to be seen. After a search, the fisherman's body floats back to the surface, his face mangled beyond recognition. Such strange events continue. A fishing boat is hauling in its net. It's harvest season, and they usually return with a full load. Who knows what awaits them this time? When they pull up the net, it's empty. Not only that, but a four-legged lizard is lying inside. The two men have never seen such a creature and guess this little guy scared away the fish. They take out a wooden cage and lock the lizard inside. In the middle of the night, one fisherman is kept awake by strange noises. He grabs a weapon and goes to the cage to scare the four-legged lizard, threatening to eat it if it doesn't quiet down. The creature glares back at him menacingly. After a standoff, the fisherman throws the cage into the freezer and goes back to sleep. He doesn't realize that the fall broke the cage and the lizard has escaped. The next morning, the other fisherman finds the freezer door ajar, with white vapor escaping. The first fisherman remembers what he did and goes to check the freezer. The pressure valve is broken, the fish inside are starting to rot, and the temperature is over 60 degrees Celsius. This is very strange. It should be the same as the outside air temperature, so why has it risen? It must be the little creature's doing. The fisherman wants to catch and punish it. He turns around and his companion sees he is covered in scars. A bag in his hand indicates he succeeded. To vent his anger, he repeatedly kicks the bag containing the lizard. The little thing lets out a strange, mournful cry that makes everyone's hair stand on end. The next moment is even more unexpected. The fisherman shivers, falls to the ground, and stops breathing. The bag drops, and the four-legged lizard scurries into the sea. Frequent monster attacks at the beach cause panic among the townspeople. Various departments come to collect samples and investigate, trying to find the truth. Based on the bite marks on the deceased, they cannot identify the creature. The experts have never seen this species. Autopsies show that several victims also died from electric shock, which only adds to the mystery of the species. Therefore, the experts rule the incident as an alligator attack. A few days later, the townspeople manage to catch a giant alligator, thinking they've found the culprit. An examination reveals its stomach is empty. The poor thing hasn't eaten in 5 days. It seems even the big predators are going hungry. Miles sees all this and knows in his heart that Nim is responsible, but he says nothing. Without a conclusion, he can't make assumptions. He needs to find his friend and go to the beach to confirm. Waves ripple on the surface. Miles runs into the water and asks if that is Nim. But when the small monsters surface, he realizes they are not Nim, and there are more than a dozen of them of various sizes. It seems the monsters are rapidly multiplying, and they are responsible for the attacks. Down below, Laura's situation is critical. Returning to the surface now would take twice as long as the descent. Laura needs to make a decision quickly. She is unwilling to give up on this hard-won dive and decides to return only when the leak becomes unbearable, so they continue to descend. When they reach a depth of 1,800 meters, the cable snaps under the strain, and the sealed tank plunges to the seabed, crashing into a cave. The water leakage accelerates, and the two are knocked around and disoriented. The sealed tank lies in the deep sea, helpless. Laura tries the radio to contact Ladybro, but there's no response. They now face many problems. The electrical system is completely damaged. Oxygen is low, the leak is getting worse, and there is no hope of rescue. Overcoming their psychological barriers, they begin to repair the electrical system, pinning their last hopes on the life raft. If they can get the compressor to start, the raft will automatically inflate. After fixing the circuit, Laura presses the the switch, but there's no response. It turns out the life raft was pinned underneath the tank when it crashed. It's a case of one misfortune after another. The two fall into despair. But there is one last resort. They try to push the tank to one side to expose the life raft, but after several attempts, they realize it's futile and only consumes more oxygen and energy. Laura tells Richard to stop wasting his strength. After a while, they still haven't found a way to save themselves. To make matters worse, Richard is already hallucinating from lack of oxygen, seeing shadows outside and thinking someone is walking on the seabed. Laura checks and says there's nothing there. She can't give up. She picks up the radio again and sends out a distress signal to anyone nearby. This time, she actually gets a reply, but after a confusing exchange where neither side understands the other, the communication ends. This rescue attempt fails. The two are so focused on escaping that they've almost forgotten why they came down here, to find evidence of the monster's existence. Just then, the sealed tank begins to shake from an external force. The two instinctively realize a monster is nearby. They take out their camera and record the shocking scene before them. A monster is laying eggs. Last time, the eggs floated to the surface. This time, they are all in the deep sea and don't float up. A large number of monsters swim overhead, some of them scraping against the tank and making it shake. This gives the two an idea. If a monster could attack the tank, its force might be enough to free the life raft. They immediately start making noise to attract the monsters, flashing the searchlight on and off. It works. A monster turns toward them, and its massive impact sends the tank tumbling, releasing the life raft. After a long ascent, the two return to the surface, breathing fresh air. They violently kick open the hatch, and a large amount of seawater rushes in. The sky is dark, the sea is rough, and a storm is raging. Lady Bro's boat is gone. They climb out of the tank and into the life raft, bobbing on the stormy sea. The life raft, having endured a rapid ascent, has done its duty. Once on the surface, it starts to develop small tears. Richard takes out a heavy-duty patch to fix it, but it's blown away by the wind. He jumps into the sea to chase it, but it's impossible to find. Just then, a monster swims by. Richard sees it and quickly scrambles back onto the raft. The monster ignores them. The cold, low temperature, and rain cause their body heat to drop rapidly. A night in these conditions could have frozen them to death. The writers will come up with any excuse to make the protagonists hug. How low can the temperature of the Atlantic be on a summer night? Anyway, after hugging, they survive until morning, not only not freezing to death, but also avoiding colds and pneumonia. The immediate crisis now is not knowing when rescue will arrive. They have only one sip of fresh water left, which is not enough, and several shark fins are circling nearby. The good news is that if the monsters come, they'll eat the sharks first. The bad news is that the two of them might be eaten by the sharks first, but Laura is a marine biologist. She understands shark behavior. She leads Richard in a Tarzan-like yell, scaring the sharks away. The two sink into despair with no choice but to wait for Lady Bro to rescue them. A life of pie scenario isn't suitable for two people. So where is Lady Bro? The police give us the answer. They found his boat. The windows are shattered. There are many shell casings on the deck, and bloodstains are everywhere. Lady Bro is not on the boat. He is presumed dead. Night falls again, and the two have to huddle together for warmth. Just then, a shocking scene appears before them. Several bolts of lightning flash across the sea, connecting it to the sky. Then, a huge point of light slowly approaches. A swarm of monsters is coming. The rain pours down again, filling their life raft with water. Suddenly, a monster leaps out, tossing the two of them into the air. When they land back in the water, the raft is completely useless. They cling to the remnants of the raft, drifting at the mercy of the waves. When they open their eyes again, they are surrounded by monster eggs. Laura understands that the monsters are protecting their young. Being surrounded by the eggs means they won't be attacked. A moment later, they have an idea that is both brilliant and grim. Laura crushes an egg and finds it oozes a green, glowing liquid. This gives Richard an idea. He can arrange the green slime into the letters SOS to signal for air rescue. However, this act is essentially destroying the next generation, which is not advisable. But then again, since the monsters are attacking humans, maybe they should just crush all the eggs. In any case, the distress signal works. A helicopter flies toward them. Just as it's about to approach the sea surface, a monster rushes out and scares it away. With an unknown, large, and dangerous creature ahead, the rescue team immediately turns back. The two didn't consider that with them in the middle of the eggs, the monsters would never let anyone get close. This rescue attempt, however, proves to be a double-edged sword. But the helicopter returns and manages to rescue them. They clutch the bag containing the DV camera tightly, not letting anyone touch it. It's the evidence they risked their lives for. Back with Miles, he was attacked by the small monsters at the beach and has several bites all over his body, which he ignored. But there's a happy surprise. Nim has returned, and they can play together again. After some simple first aid, Miles goes to school as usual. But in class, when the teacher calls on him, his vision blurs, and he faints. His sister comes to the school nurse's office to see him and demands the truth. He shows her his wounds. The nurse finds his temperature is 41 degrees Celsius. A moment later, it climbs to 45 degrees Celsius. Miles passes out from the fever and is transferred to a hospital for physical cooling, where he is placed in a tub full of ice. His sister is very worried and thinks it might be related to their pet monster. She decides to take Nim to the hospital for testing. She gets a pet carrier and lures Nim inside with sea salt, then brings him to the hospital. The moment she puts the carrier on a table to get a doctor, Nim bites through the cage and escapes. They search everywhere and finally find him on Miles's bed, licking his wounds. Seeing a group of strangers, Nim runs off again. Miles's heart monitor flatlines. Doctors rush in to perform emergency resuscitation, but repeated shocks from the defibrillator have no effect. Outside, an aquarium curator and a police officer corner Nim in the hallway. The officer quietly draws his gun and pulls the trigger. With a single gunshot, Miles sits up. He's awake. He then struggles frantically, wanting to find Nim and make sure he's safe. When he finds Nim, he is lying in a pool of blood. Miles holds Nim and weeps, crying that Nim never hurt him. Miles's vital signs are stable. He is out of danger. His sister removes the bandage on his leg and finds the wound has completely healed, without a single scar. It was Nim who saved her brother. The aquarium curator is very interested in Nim and takes his body back for dissection and research. In the lab, Nim, lying on a block of ice, wakes up. He wasn't dead, but he no longer trusts humans. When Miles comes to see him, he hides under a table, baring his teeth at Miles in a threatening manner. Despite his cute appearance, he can be quite fierce when he's scared. Miles turns and offers him a sea fish. Unable to resist the temptation, Nim extends a small paw and pulls the fish closer. Just then, the aquarium curator says that Nim has powerful self-healing abilities that should be researched for medical use. Many patients could be cured, and it would be a great benefit to all of humanity. Miles hears this and agrees it makes sense. He consents, but on one condition: Nim must not be harmed. The curator immediately agrees. Miles uses sea salt to lure Nim out. The boy and the monster cuddle together. Nim knows that only Miles will not harm him. A couple of days later, Miles comes to the lab to see Nim and finds that they are not feeding him. Instead, they are injecting him with sedatives and extracting his bone marrow cells. Miles confronts the curator, but his attitude has changed. He is arrogant and cold. Miles is thrown out of the lab. As he walks down the streetlights he passes begin to flicker. He looks in a mirror and sees his pupils have become vertical slits, and the sound coming from his throat is the same as Nim's. Miles feels no excitement, only anxiety. He meets his girlfriend at the beach to clear his head. As the two get closer, Miles releases a jolt of electricity that shocks his girlfriend. She thinks it's just static from the dry beach air and doesn't think much of it. She tries to take his hand to try again, but is shocked by a much stronger current. Their friends who went for a swim have been gone for a long time. People start shouting for help. Miles's girlfriend runs into the sea to try and rescue them. Just then, green lightning flashes across the water, and everyone is too scared to go any further. The next day, a professional search and rescue team looks for the 3 missing people, but after searching both land and sea, they find nothing. Elsewhere, some children are playing and find something strange in the bushes. They look closer and see it's a human arm. A parent comes to identify it. The watch on it belongs to one of the missing kids from last night. The death of his classmate by a monster attack makes Miles doubt himself for the first time. Although Nim never hurt him, it's not the same for others. He secretly decides he will no longer protect the monsters. The police soon arrive at the aquarium and demand the curator hand over the monster. To save himself, the curator righteously declares he will stand against the monsters, even smashing a monster egg to prove his point. The public protests outside, believing the aquarium was harboring monsters. The police decide to place a tracker on Nim and release him into the sea to find his kin, so they can then capture them all at once. Since Miles is Nim's owner, the police, while pretending to respect his choice, ask him to attach the tracker, secretly afraid the monster might get angry and they'd be caught in the crossfire. Miles, with no other choice, complies since the situation has spiraled out of his control. After Nim is released into the sea, the police monitor the tracker's location. It soon stops in an unfamiliar area of the sea which appears to be their lair. The police quickly dispatch a team to the designated area and find it is filled with monster eggs. Now they can truly wipe them out in one go. They collect the giant eggs for disposal. At this moment, Miles feels a change happening within him. His palms begin to secrete slime, and he panics. To prevent the situation from worsening, Miles pours gasoline from a barrel onto the monster eggs and sets them on fire, burning them all. This truly cuts off the monster's lineage. Miles finds the curator and asks about Nim. The tracker shows he is still active in a nearby swamp area. The police immediately move out. A large number of small monsters appear. The police try to trap them with nets, preventing them from escaping into the deep sea and forcing them toward the shore, where they have guns ready. Any monster that runs toward them is shot without hesitation. The small monsters scream in pain and stop advancing. One monster, wounded by a gunshot, runs to the shore and stops. A police officer, thinking the monster is dead, picks it up to show off his success. But the monster suddenly moves and bites his neck. A wave of monsters crawls onto the land and begins to attack the humans. Bullets are no longer effective. As the monsters attack ferociously, people flee for their shitty lives. Even those who hide in their cars are not safe, as the windows are smashed and their arms are bitten. Miles arrives at the scene and recognizes Nim. He tells him to stop attacking people. Nim looks aggrieved, but does stop. Miles removes the tracker and apologizes to Nim, hoping for his forgiveness. His girlfriend arrives and sees all the monsters have stopped their attack and are now surrounding Miles in a posture of worship. Everyone understands. The monsters see Miles as their leader. Only Miles can control them now. Miles says goodbye to his girlfriend and decides to fulfill his destiny, leading all the monsters into the sea. The war, for now, is over. The next day, Miles appears unharmed on the beach. After waking up, he calls his family to let them know he's safe, but two large dogs bark furiously at him. Miles is so scared his pupils turn into slits again. It seems the dogs have detected his monster nature. Not only that, but he's developing a craving for salt. His girlfriend sees this and is deeply worried, sensing something bad is about to happen. However, Miles suddenly reacts as if he has received some kind of information. He turns and sees Nim in a restaurant. Nim follows him and jumps onto a chair. The people around are terrified, and the restaurant owner even pulls out a gun. Miles reassures everyone, telling them not to panic, that Nim won't hurt anyone. He then walks out with his pet. The two of them take Nim to the beach and order him to jump in. Although confused, Nim obeys, but he looks up at Miles with expectation. The small monsters nearby gather, awaiting Miles's response. It seems they are welcoming their master home. Naturally, Miles cannot live with them and orders them to go into the deep sea. Back at school, people's attitudes toward Miles have changed. Everyone avoids him, no longer talking to him and pointing at him behind his back. Someone even puts salted fish in his locker. He is an outcast. Miles initially doesn't care and goes about his life as usual, but the school bully finds him, first beating and humiliating him, then choking him for fun. If he doesn't let go, Miles will suffocate. An enraged Miles's power erupts. He breaks the bully's grip with one hand, then crushes his hand in his fingers, presses his forehead, and releases a jolt of electricity. The bully is electrocuted and faints. The surrounding students look at Miles in terror, treating him like a monster. When he was being bullied, no one helped. Now that he has successfully fought back with his own power, he's treated like a monster. Meanwhile, Laura and her team finally have evidence of the monster's existence and have released it to the media. What they didn't expect was that the military had already prepared a countermeasure. They bribed experts to accuse Laura of faking the video, using non-existent video analysis techniques to fool the public. They also claimed Laura's academic papers were fraudulent and that she had been fired from the research institute, suggesting she was acting out of revenge. The public doesn't believe in the monsters and instead criticizes Laura. The two are frustrated, unable to believe the military would so brazenly lie. At a dead end, they receive an email from a stranger who claims to know the origin of the monsters and can tell them. They agree to meet. Richard is suspicious of the grand manner of the meeting. The person is a doctor arriving by helicopter and advises Laura not to go. Laura says they are at their wits' end and have to see what it's about. Laura is blindfolded and taken by helicopter to a laboratory. The doctor tells Laura everything she knows. 20 years ago, the doctor was hired by a mysterious organization to research a drug for rapid human cell repair. Her task was to use artificial genetic programming to combine the unique traits of multiple organisms into a nematode, eventually giving the nematode self-repair abilities. Why not just study earthworms if it was so complicated? The doctor discovered that there were over 2,500 scientists like her in the organization, each responsible for a field of study, with no one knowing the final product. It wasn't until the doctor saw Laura's report on the sea monsters that she understood. Everyone's research had been combined to create the giant monsters. But the doctor knows little about the organization's details, her only clue being that the organization owns a very famous pharmaceutical company. Laura wants to ask more, but halfway through the conversation, she faints. When she wakes up, she has been dumped in a ditch on the side of the road. Back home, Laura and Richard Richard research the pharmaceutical company and decide the only way to confirm their suspicions is to infiltrate it. They disguise themselves as journalists, seeking an interview with the head of the company, but are quickly identified and thrown out. Unwilling to give up, they go to the company's warehouse and find it has already been cleared out. To find any clues, they decide to split up and explore. Richard enters a dark, eerie lab and hears a baby crying. He slowly approaches to see what's under a table. A dark mass huddles there, afraid to come out, asking if he has seen its mother. Richard, thinking it's a lost child, tries to pull it out forcefully. The creature immediately becomes enraged, reveals its true form, and attacks Richard. It's not his mother, it's a large chimpanzee speaking. Laura hears the commotion, rushes in, and pulls out her gun. The chimp and Richard are still fighting, with Richard being helplessly dragged along. Laura fires in a panic, missing every shot, and instead, the chimp comes to the glass door, slams it in defiance, leaves 2 giant bloody handprints, and then calmly runs away. Not knowing what kind of creature this is, Richard is too scared to speak. The pharmaceutical company is incredibly careless to leave such crucial evidence behind for others to find. Now in the deep-sea magma, the monsters are no longer satisfied with this small amount of heat. To gain more energy, they begin to explore the Earth's core magma layer. Due to their massive numbers, they completely alter the seabed's topography. A 9.4 magnitude earthquake erupts instantly. The seismic station receives the information and immediately broadcasts it to the nation. An undersea earthquake will trigger a tsunami with waves that could reach 100 meters high, enough to swallow the entire landmass. People must evacuate to higher ground. The local sheriff, who is going door to door to notify residents, encounters a crowd demanding that Miles, the monster, be brought to justice. The scene is chaotic. The sheriff fires a warning shot and informs everyone about the earthquake. No one cares about Miles anymore. Everyone is packing and preparing to flee. Miles's family does the same, packing essential supplies, food, and water. The TV news reports that the highways are completely gridlocked, with traffic at a standstill. The tsunami is expected in 2 hours. The family has no choice but to try to evacuate by sea. They go to the docks and, with great effort, manage to squeeze onto a boat. Miles realizes his girlfriend is not on board. Her father tells him she went to Miles's house. Miles, already at a loss, sees a male classmate riding his girlfriend's bike. He confronts him and finds out where he took it. Against all objections, Miles resolutely jumps into the sea and swims to shore. He first goes back to his house but doesn't find his girlfriend. Then he sees Nim. Following Nim's lead, he finds his girlfriend who has fainted. They search the house for her father's car keys. Nim is fascinated by the TV, where a reporter is broadcasting from the front lines. A monster's giant mouth then swallows the reporter whole without hormone mercy, and the TV signal disappears. Nim looks embarrassed. The two drive to an intersection and crash into a frantic Laura and Richard. The group decides to escape together. Richard drives with the students in the back. Laura turns to talk to them and sees Nim internally cursing. She's been risking her life searching for these creatures, and here he is, keeping one as a pet. Before long, the car runs out of gas and stops on the road. In the distance, a 100-meter-high wave is already approaching. The four remember the nearby church, the highest point around, and run for it without a second thought. Inside the church, they climb the stairs and find the skylight is locked. Richard uses all his strength to ram it. Water floods the entire church, pouring in through the windows, and the water level quickly rises up the stairs. In despair, they hug each other, but then the impact of the water stops. Laura says this is the calm before the storm, meaning an even bigger wave is coming. Richard grabs a brick and continues to smash the skylight. Just then, Miles sees a giant monster swimming toward them, but it just looks at them and swims away. The skylight finally breaks open. They quickly climb to the roof. The water below continues to batter the building, and the entire structure sways, uncertain how long it will hold. A short while later, everything becomes calm. They stand up and look out at a world covered by the ocean, with only the tops of a few houses visible. Beside them, Nim looks out at the distance with them. It's unclear whether they should lament their fate or celebrate their survival after the catastrophe. So ends the series. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.